In recent years, there have been more and more evictions in the US. Due to the pandemic and the economic situation, the number of households forced to leave their homes continues to rise. This affects not only people who rent an apartment or house, but also those who own their own homes. For example, when they can no longer pay their mortgage. For the emergency services, witnessing such evictions is part of everyday life. But in February 2023, one such call turns into a nightmare. When the sheriffs arrive at the Cain property, they find not an empty house, but a crime scene. At first glance, the Cains appear to be a normal family of four. Father Stephen is 50, the youngest of three siblings, and has been passionate about sports and nature since his youth. He's a huge fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers football team. He's also interested in art and writes stories and poems. Some of his books have even been published. In his free time, he enjoys making music. He is also active in several hobby bands as a guitarist and singer. For example, in the thrash metal band Cryptic Chaos. Stephen works for a software company as a security and environmental consultant. His wife, Theresa, is 46 years old, 4 years younger than him. It is not known exactly when and where Stephen and Theresa met. However, the two have lived in different states during their relationship. They are originally from Connecticut. From there, they first moved to Georgia, then to Philadelphia, and finally to Ohio. Theresa and Stephen have 2 children together. Their daughter Samantha will be an adult in 2023 at the age of 20. She's studying psychology and criminology at Northern Kentucky University. Her younger brother Ethan is 13 years old. He's in the 8th grade at New Richmond Middle School. Ethan is described as a shy but very friendly and considerate boy. He's very hardworking at school and puts a lot of effort into his homework and tests. Ethan is quite popular, not only with the children in his class, but also with the teachers. Like many children his age, he spends a lot of time playing video games, but he also enjoys swimming. The Cains live in their own house in New Richmond, Ohio. Theresa and Stephen bought a 2-story house there in 2015 in a quiet residential neighborhood. It has 3 bedrooms and stands on 3 acres of land. It is the perfect place for the Cains to raise their daughter Samantha and son Ethan. The Cains agreed on a purchase price of $212,000. The family quickly settled into New Richmond and got along very well with their neighbors. At some point, Theresa's father William also moved in with the family. He is already 74 years old and slowly needs help with everyday tasks. February 27th, 2023 is a difficult day for the family. The Cain family's house is to be evicted. Theresa Cain knows about it. She is notified a week before the planned action. The officials responsible for the eviction arrive at the agreed time. But this measure will not be carried out. Instead, the unthinkable happens. It is 9:40 a.m. on February 27th when the plainclothes police arrive at the Cain home. At first glance, everything looks normal on Rebill Ridge Road. Theresa, the mother of the family, is even standing on the porch when the officers get out of their cars and approach the property. For the police officers, this is just a routine call. They are often present at evictions like this, simply to make sure that everything goes smoothly. As far as the eviction at the Cain's house is concerned, they have no reason to believe that there will be any complications during the process. After all, Theresa knows what's going on. When the eviction was announced a week earlier, she assured them that everything would be fine. The sheriff's office also inquired whether the Cains had a place to stay after the eviction. Theresa said yes. She just asked for a little more time to pack up the last few things. The 10 a.m. appointment on February 27th is fine with the mom of two. She promises that the family will be ready to leave the house on Rebill Ridge Road by then. But in reality, things look a lot different. When Theresa sees the officer's car pull up, she goes back into the house from the porch. Two police officers have arrived for the planned operation. Both find it strange that Mrs. Cain is simply going back into the house despite her previous cooperation. The police officers get out and knock on the front door, but get no answer. One of the officers decides to simply open the door to see if everything is okay. He cautiously steps into the hallway and calls out to Mrs. Cain. Shortly thereafter, he hears a muffled voice. It sounds like she's muttering something. Something that sounds like, "No, no, no." Shortly afterwards, several shots ring out from inside the house. Within seconds, 5 shots are fired. Then, there is silence. After a short time, one of the police officers dares to advance further into the house and makes a horrific discovery. Theresa Cain, who was standing on her porch just moments ago, is dead. She's lying in a pool of blood on the upper floor of the house. And unfortunately, she's not the only one dead. On the same floor lie her son Ethan and her own father William Felton. And in the basement, Theresa's husband Stephen lies dead on a couch. Samantha, the family's 20-year-old daughter, is seriously injured. The house, which was supposed to be evicted that day, has become the scene of a triple murder. It's not just the two plainclothes officers who are shocked by the scene inside the Cain home. The police officers who are called to the scene are also stunned. After Samantha is taken to a nearby hospital with serious injuries, forensic investigators search the house to find out what happened. The chief sheriff describes the crime scene as the worst he has ever seen in his career. During the inspection of the crime scene, it is immediately apparent that the Cains did not pack a single moving box. This is despite the fact that they were supposed to move out of their house on the day of the murders. However, the police only had contact with Theresa Cain about the matter, not with the other members of the family. This is one of the reasons why the police soon develop a theory. The investigators suspect that Theresa simply concealed the eviction order from the others. Ethan, Samantha, Stephen, and William probably had no idea that they were supposed to leave their house that morning. Actually, 13-year-old Ethan shouldn't even have been at home that morning. He should have been at school. However, Theresa called the school on the morning of February 27th and excused Ethan for the day. This suggests that Theresa Cain must have planned to shoot her family and herself that morning, presumably because she couldn't cope with the impending eviction and had kept it a secret until the very end. Investigators suspect that Theresa shot her husband Stephen first. When his body is found, he's lying on the couch in the living room. It looks as if he did not expect to be attacked with a firearm at that moment. Certainly not by his own wife. This also means that Ethan, William, and Samantha must have witnessed Theresa killing them one by one. They must have been terrified in their final moments.
And then within a series of minutes that the rest of the family was killed, and we believe that this occurred within minutes of our civil deputies' arrival.
The person they love and trust the most takes advantage of that trust and kills them. The police suspect that Theresa shot her family members and then went out onto the porch to wait for the plainclothes police to arrive. When she saw the car approaching, she went back into the house and took her own life. The 5 shots fired were therefore probably intended in part as warning shots to prevent the 2 plainclothes police officers from entering the house before Theresa shot herself.
Yeah, Rob, so the sheriff says that Theresa Cain shot her husband, her children, and her elderly father on Friday. He says this, Monday. He says this comes as a shock to them because everyone they've talked to about Theresa during this investigation has described her as nothing but pleasant. They also say that they had been in contact with Theresa lately because the bank was taking over her home and she was well aware of this and cooperating with law enforcement.
At the scene, officers also find the suspected murder weapon, a revolver. 20-year-old Samantha Cain is the only member of the family to survive her mother's attack. She's taken to the hospital with serious injuries and initially placed in an induced coma. However, doctors soon give her a good chance of recovery. To pay for her treatment, a friend of Samantha's sets up a fundraising campaign. In addition, small charity events are organized in local venues to collect money. After just a short time, the fundraising goal is exceeded. More than $44,000 is raised to cover Samantha's hospital and subsequent therapy bills. After just over a week, Samantha Cain regains consciousness. In April 2023, about 2 months after the family murders, Samantha is able to breathe and walk on her own again. During this time, she is in almost daily contact with her Aunt Wanda, one of her father's sisters. Wanda also speaks out publicly after the family murders. She reports that Theresa did not work, but still managed the family's finances. At the same time, Wanda reports that she had not seen the Cains for years. This was mainly because Theresa had tried to minimize contact between Stephen's family and her own. Wanda cannot explain how the eviction order came about, as she says Stephen worked hard and long hours. That's why his sister suspects that Theresa must have spent her husband's income elsewhere, and to such an extent that the family's financial situation became increasingly difficult. After the murders, it becomes known that Theresa did not always pay the mortgage on the house reliably. In May 2022, the Cains are so far behind with their payments that the company from which they bought the house in 2015 takes action. Action that no one else in the family knows about except Theresa herself. The crime that Theresa Cain committed against her own family can be classified as familicide. As the name suggests, this refers to murder within one's own family. The motives of the perpetrators are often disappointment or shame. These can be triggered by traumatic experiences such as family or financial problems. This is presumably also the case with Theresa Cain. It is believed that her despair at being evicted became so great that she decided to wipe out her own family. Her daughter Samantha is the only survivor. She not only has to cope with her physical recovery, but also with the psychological wounds, and the death of her parents, her grandfather, and her little brother. A memorial plaque is being set up at Ethan's middle school. On this plaque, Ethan's classmates can leave their thoughts and final words for their deceased friend. Soon, the plaque is covered with dozens of Post-it notes with little messages and drawings. The exact motives behind the Cain family murders will probably always remain a mystery. What is certain, however, is that the deaths of Stephen, Ethan, and William could have been prevented. The fact that Theresa Cain saw no other way out than to kill her family is deeply saddening and infuriating. That's it for today's case. I'm really curious to hear what you think about it. Feel free to write your thoughts in the comments. That way, you'll also be supporting the channel. The more interaction there is on the channel, the more likely it is that the video will be recommended to people who haven't subscribed to Solito yet. Thank you in advance, and thank you for watching. Have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching this video, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, bye everyone.